Some of you may know I have children. And I don't know if you've ever had children or not. But there is a point in time when a child develops where they learn this word. It's a horrible word. It's a word that has frustrated me to no end. It's a word that bugs me every time one of my children utters it. It's a 3-letter word. It's the word, why? Why? Daddy, why is that cloud dark and that cloud not dark? Oh, well, there's moisture in one cloud and the other cloud doesn't have as much moisture. Why, Daddy? Well, because there's a greater concentration in the atmosphere of moisture in that section of the sky, and that cloud can't hold it. Why, Daddy? Stop me if you've heard this before. You get to the point where you say, just because. Just because. I was reading an article this past week. Nobody that has paid any attention to society, if you've just been kind of missing in action, then I can understand if you've missed this. But nobody that has been paying attention to what has been going on in our society. By the way, can I make one quick commentary? Would you mind terribly? I am continually confused by a political system that is amazed when one side pushes too hard to change things that the other side reacts negatively. That confuses me that people are surprised by that. I'm sorry, that confuses me. And so when one side says, oh, we've got to change the definition of marriage. We've got to change the definition of what it means to be a man or a woman. We don't know who should go to which bathroom anymore. We want to make sure that all of this is changed. Change right now. Change today. Do it right now. Because it's the right thing to do. Because that's the way I feel it should be. And then they go, I can't believe how angry those other people are. Are you serious? Give me a break, folks. And then, of course, the other group says, oh, no, we've got to bash and we've got to call people names and we've got to lash out. And then they stand back and go, wonder why those folks are so upset with us. Do you see what I'm talking about, gang? Please, everybody just grow up, shall we? Speaking of that, this constant reality in our society that the fastest growing religious affiliation in this country is the nuns. Now that's not N-U-N, it's N-O-N-E-S, the nuns. They are disconnecting from organized religion. They are disconnecting from going to church. They are disconnecting. By the way, 50 years ago, attending church every Sunday was normal in this country. It was normal. 25 years ago, it was normal to go to church in this country every Sunday. In fact, in my blessed South, that I love with all my heart, I feel bad for people who aren't Southerners. It is a defect you can't fix, folks. I'm sorry. It's a shame and it's horrible, and you're just going to have to live with it. You're just going to have to live with it. But we even had in this area of the country laws called blue laws. There were only certain businesses or certain operations that could be done on a Sunday. If you needed milk on a Sunday, too bad. That all began to change. And now more and more Sunday is being crowded. And look at what's happened to our church services. Our church services have felt the brunt. We have now reduced Sunday to do everything that was supposed to have been done all week long in a church. We make Sunday do everything. We make Sunday do all the education. We make Sunday do all the announcements. We make Sunday do all the fellowship. Sunday is only that. And because of that, we have lost the ability to be community in our day. That's the reason why, brothers and sisters, if you want to know why people are disconnecting from the Christian faith, from religious affiliation at all, it's because we live in a society that is diametrically opposed to what we believe. Do you understand that? They are against what we believe. They don't want to believe that anymore. Now, it's extremely important for us to understand that these nuns, these folks who are saying we're no longer connected to a church anymore, these people have not become atheists. As much as the militant modern atheist movement may want to claim them, the number of atheists in this country are pretty much the same, about 1-2% all over the country. The vast majority of men and women who have disconnected from the church still believe in God. They want to be spiritual but not religious. Now, brothers and sisters, we can fuss at those folks. We can be mad at them. We can say, how dare they? We can say naughty, naughty, and every bit of that will be a waste of time until you and I look at ourselves and ask this one question: what was my part in making it easy for them to disconnect from the faith? What was my part in that? Until I examine my own heart, till we as Orthodox Christians examine why 60% of our young people leave the church when they go to college, until we're honest about that, we will never get better. We'll just simply sit here wringing our hands and saying, woe is me, why aren't the children coming to church anymore? Well, look in the mirror. That's why. Of course, that's easy to say, but the reality is there's something else afoot as well. And it is exactly what our gospel lesson was talking about this morning. Jesus says it best. He always does. Jesus makes it clear that the only way to follow him consistently is to do the hard work of bearing our cross. Now, that's easy to say. But it isn't the momentary flame up of religious fervor in our lives that carries us through, but it is the constant, steady faithfulness that consistency brings by a faithful life. And faithfulness will never happen by accident. It will only happen through understanding why. Now, for years, stop me if you've heard this one, for years, we have been told that the best way to explain to our kids why we do things in the Orthodox faith is to say, well, that's just the way we've always done it. And we've been told, stop me if you've heard this, that's what Yahya said we're supposed to do. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard lifelong Orthodox tell me, Father Barnabas, growing up, Yahya made sure we fasted on Wednesdays and Fridays. Yahya made sure that when Great Lent came around, we were going to confession and that we fasted, and especially Holy Week, we fasted all week long. Yahya made sure of that. And so I always ask them the next question, are you still doing it? Oh, well, Father, let's don't get carried away. Why was it easy to stop? Why is it easy to not be faithful and hard to remain faithful? Why? Why is it easy to lay off the exercise routine that morning, then go ahead and go to the gym and do the work? Why? I ask myself that question all the time. Why is it easy to forget to pray and hard to remember to pray? Why? And the answer to this question, brothers and sisters, is not complicated. It isn't a mystery. There's no magic formula that's going to make this okay. There's no magic formula that's going to fix this. I'm not going to be able to answer. I'm not going to be able to say something to you this morning. You're going to go, well, finally someone told me. You already know the answer. The answer is the hard work of consistency. But the only way you're ever going to do the hard work of consistency is if you do something before that, and that is learn why. If you want to know why your children, your grandchildren, your friends and neighbors, the faces that you don't see here anymore, aren't here anymore, then the question to ask is, did they understand why it was worth the hard work of being faithful? One of the things that I told my dad when I became Orthodox, I said, Dad, I finally found a theology big enough for the dignity of the human soul. Let's face it, folks, being Orthodox is a pain. especially in a culture and in a country when we're less than 1% of the population. Those numbers, about 6 million Orthodox in the United States or 3 million Orthodox in the United States, it's just not true, folks. Folks, look at me. It's not true. It's not true. On average, in this country, if we define a faithful Orthodox Christian as someone who attends church twice a year, we're looking at a little over 1 million people. I tried to count the cats and the dogs and the parakeets, but they wouldn't let me. We're looking at a little over 1 million people. That's reality. Hiding from reality will leave you sick. And the reason why it's been easy for these Orthodox Christians to stop practicing the faith is, for the most part, they don't know why it's worth it. They're still living on the spiritual and emotional gasoline of the faithfulness of the past. And the challenge that I have for you this morning is, if you and I are ever going to cross that hard emotional and philosophical Rubicon of faithful practice of the Orthodox faith, we're going to have to become students of why. Now, I want to caution you here, because it is extremely easy to confuse understanding why it's worth being a faithful Orthodox Christian with simply learning information. And I can tell you this, that's never going to work. It's good, don't get me wrong. I would love for you to crack open a book and read about the Orthodox faith. I would love for you to pick a saint and read his or her life. I would love for you to find it in your time of day to read about why there are so many converts in the Orthodox Church. Why are people leaving other forms of Christianity and becoming Orthodox? It's not like you guys are putting it out there and saying, hey, y'all, come on. You've done a wonderful job at hiding behind every rock and bush you could find. But why are people converting? Is it because they just married into it? This rock fell on me, I didn't fall on it? Or are they discovering something about this Orthodox faith that makes it worth the hard work of being Orthodox? And what I would suggest to you, brothers and sisters, is that the next generation will never have a vibrant faith until this generation understands why it's worth being Orthodox. I never will forget, I was reading this article this past week, preparing for this homily, where this professor said the reason why people are disconnecting from the faith is because they were never taught why it's worth it. That's why they're disconnecting. And it's not simply just discovering factual information, like when the Great Schism happened in 1054, or when the 1517 Great Reformation happened, or any of those other things that going on. It's valuable stuff, don't get me wrong. But the why extends to the beauty of the faith as well. The why extends to the confession that there is a spiritual illness in each of us that can only be remedied by the proper medication. The proper spiritual medication that has been preserved and passed on in this church, in the Orthodox Christian faith. No longer settling for taking an aspirin to cure cancer. Insisting on the full potency of timeless Christianity to remake a man or a woman fit to enjoy God forever. That is why it's worth being Orthodox. But your children will never know that unless they see that. Your children will never know that unless they hear that. Your children will never know that unless they sense that. Your children will never know that unless they experience that. You are responsible for learning the why so that you can pass on a robust faith to the next generation. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come up to me and say, Father, I didn't know this about the Orthodox faith, and I've grown up in this church my whole life. But folks, don't beat yourself up over that. That's normal. The vast majority of people are too busy to do what I've done for the past 35 years, study religion. By the way, don't confuse your Google search with my theological degree. But But most of you don't have the time to do all this. So what do? You come to church. You be in this place and be exposed to the wisdom of the faith. Whether you understand everything or not, that's not the point. But that you embrace with full joy the wisdom that will heal you, the wisdom that will remake you, the wisdom that will finally touch that place in your life that you've been broken and heartbroken and scared and afraid and continually making the same mistakes over and over again. Come to the hospital of spiritual life and be remade. And then pass on that healthy faith to the next generation. It isn't enough to read a book. It isn't enough to make your Stavro. That's a good thing. It isn't enough to say, oh, well, I'm Orthodox. That's wonderful. But one must stop just saying it and one day be it. I'll tell you one joke and then I'll quit. It's like the old woman looked at the old man and said, why don't you tell me you love me anymore? And the old man looked at the old woman. They'd been married 60-something years. And he looked at her and said, well, dear, I told you I loved you when we got married. If I ever change my mind, I'll let you know. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And it's not good enough to claim to be Greek Orthodox and not practice the faith. That's not good enough. The only thing that's ever going to be good enough is to shoulder the hard work of being Orthodox on purpose. Put that cross on your back and let it take you to where crosses take everybody. The death of your old self so that your true self can live forever in Christ. Amen.